Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're doing well. Today's video is quite an exciting one, for me at least anyway. This is a car I remember these originally coming out and thinking, that's an incredible car and it's the sort of thing I'll never buy. Never in my life did I think I'd buy one for 1,500 quid plus fees, so £1,750 all in for a car with what is 11 or 12 months MOT, I think, and running and driving. That didn't seem like a reality. So for me, this is really cool. Admittedly, this car does need a little bit of work, but then I think it's going to be an absolute beauty. So I think this is probably going to be a couple of videos, a little series, if you like. One, I'm going to show you the car, show you what issues there may or may not be. And then the second video will probably be addressing all of those issues, hopefully, and having a very nice car at the end of it. So let's start with where we are now. Let's have a look at the car. Here it is. And probably the first things that jump out are where my dog has weed on it when he's come out a minute ago. And the fact that that looks a little bit of a small wheel, doesn't it? That is a Phaeton wheel. That, I don't believe it is. I don't know what that is, but the wheels on this are 19s, and that is a 17. The good news is I do have a full set. There was a spare in the boot that was the right wheel for the car. Where this one's come from, I don't know. Perhaps that is meant to be the spare. I'd be surprised. But I do have a full matching set of 4. I think one of them might need a weld, and they could all do a refurbish. So that is going to be job number 1 for the next video. Probably first job of many. On the whole, though, it's looking pretty tidy on the outside. There are a few bits I'll point out. Quite tidy around the back, no real complaints there. The bits where it stands out is we've got some corrosion along the bottoms of the door here, and that's pretty similar the other side, I think. This car came from auction, another BCA car. You know how much I love them. I did try bidding on this either earlier in the week or a few auctions before or something, and I think I put my bid in of £1,500 and didn't win it. Well, that's a shame, and I thought someone else must have got it, but they didn't. It came back around again, and I thought, oh, I'll put another bid in, and I couldn't remember exactly what I bid the first time, but I'm going to do 1,500 again and hope that I get it this time, and I did. And it's pretty rare that that happens, to be honest. Usually someone else has done the same thing as you and they're willing to up their bid, but I guess this is a potentially really problematic car, and I'm the only one stupid enough to pay £1,500 for it. Coming round the front, again, it's all in pretty good condition. We need to put some new plates on it because these are looking pretty rough, which is a shame because it is a Volkswagen plate, but we can put a nice set of Barrow Motors ones on there. All the parking sensors still there, not hanging out. Interesting, these 2 front ones are looking in worse condition than the ones that are on the side. This is by far the worst wheel, as you can see, and this in fact was the one that was in the boot. So while that wheel on the offside rear is the wrong wheel, when we went to go pick this car up from the auction centre, because it was only down the road from us at Bridgewater, they set off and the tyre went flat immediately. So then we had to recover it back. We found that it had this spare wheel, this one here, in the boot. I thought, okay, great, so we have got a full set of 4. The tyre wasn't the greatest, but that's all right. We thought we could pump it up. It still had plenty of tread, it was legal, and it seemed to hold a charge, and we wanted to drive it home. So I drove it home that night, brought it back the next day, and then someone else decided they were going to take it home. I think Dan was going to take it home, see what he thought about it. And again, next morning he came in flat again. So we've now put a part 1 tyre off the shelf back on there. But I am suspicious of why we keep getting flat tyres on that corner. It could just be because they were crap tyres and they weren't really up to holding any pressure, and then we've driven on them and it's a big heavy car. Time will tell, I guess. I think what we're going to end up doing is having all 4 of these wheels refurbed and then a full set of brand new tyres all the way around. Probably some mid-range tyres or something. And then, fingers crossed, problems no more. Again, we got a bit of this corrosion on the bottom of the door, and there are a few scuffs on this one as well. In fact, that's literally just wiped off by hand. I thought we can polish that off, but apparently I can do it with my fingers. That's rubbed into something blue. I don't know what's happened there, but certainly this car will look really good for a alloy wheel refurb and a really decent polish all over. Oh yeah, we also will need to refurbish these lights. You can see they're hazed over, but we've got the kit to be able to do that. All the rear parking sensors still there. Otherwise, it's pretty straight, isn't it? I mean, I like these cars. I think they're cool, but you can't really argue it's not the most attractive car in the world, is it? It looks a bit of a bloated Passat, if you ask me, and not even, you know, a fancy Passat. It looks like a base spec Passat that's done what I've done and put a bit too much weight on. Of course, this car is mostly about interior features, interior comfort and the drive, so let's hop inside and see what we've got in there. So here is our key. Sadly, we do only have the one. I'm happy to see that it's not exactly like every other Volkswagen key. It seems a bit different to me. Maybe someone else can tell me that maybe it looks like another model that I haven't seen. I like the knurled interior part of the key. It's quite, well, it's not really fancy, is it? But it's a nice added little detail, and I like the metallic case around it, which, you know, it doesn't say... You'd be disappointed if you got a key and it was exactly the same as the Golf, but it's not much more exciting, but it is different. Well, as you'd expect, it is incredibly spacious and comfortable in here. These seats are like armchairs out of your house. They are ridiculously comfortable, and the heated seats work incredibly well as well. So it is a superbly comfortable place to be, and it has some pretty cool features that make it feel quite special as well. First up, this steering wheel and instrument cluster is pretty much straight out of a Bentley GT Continental, isn't it? Obviously slight design differences, but of course this is built on a Bentley Continental GT chassis, so it shares an awful lot of things, even down to the controls inside are all Bentley GT-esque. So for what I've paid for this, you are getting, you know, a great fit and finish and some nice design features that have crossed over from the Bentley into this model, so you can't really complain about that sort of stuff. So this car has this walnut interior trim, which I wouldn't have liked in my younger days. I would want a carbon fibre or brushed chrome or something, but I don't dislike it now, and I don't know whether that's standard across all the Phaetons or whether in, say, like the W12, the top of the range model, you can have different options. I'm sure there are tons and tons of different options, but most of the ones I've seen have got this walnut dash. What all of them do have in common is how the dash pieces roll up when you put the front-facing vents on. So that's opened up here as well. I'm noticing our one over this side hasn't opened. I wonder if that's just because it's turned off. No, it's just not working. And these are the sorts of issues that could be the start of where any potential profit this car disappears, but fingers crossed. Okay, good news. It's not actually broken. I carried on playing around with the buttons in here, and it's just my lack of knowledge, of course, because we've got dual, I think even quad zone climate control in here. If I want to open the left-hand side, I just have to open for the vents on the passenger side, and then it opens up smoothly. And one thing I'll say is I absolutely love how when it does close down again, it fits perfectly around that clock, which is just a really neat feature. Of course, we have cruise control, Bluetooth, all the things you'd expect to have in here. I think one thing that a lot of people will really like, the type of person who's going to own this car, which let's say is probably going to be the more discerning gentleman driver, that it has an oil temperature gauge, it's got a water temperature gauge, obviously you've got your fuel gauge, but it also has a battery voltage readout among these two huge, your speedometer and your tachometer. So you've got loads of information, as well as this LCD screen in the middle giving you your trip computer information. It can have sat-nav information in there. I don't know if I can go through it while we're on. It's asking me to... So it's telling us the boot's open. We'll get to that in a minute. I don't think I can do it right now. We'll come back to that. But I think importantly, the amount of older gentleman customers we find who desperately miss having a water temperature gauge or an oil temperature gauge, and having gauges, I think it makes them feel more engaged with the car. They get to keep an eye on it. They're really, you know, the pilot of their craft. So I think the more gauges and things you have like that for, as I say, the discerning gentleman, I think that's a real nice added bonus. I don't dislike it, but I wouldn't be fussed if they weren't there either. I think anything that has added features adds a little something for some people though. You have this giant gear selector with the V6 written on it, this one being the 3-litre TD V6. You have a key switch for your passenger airbag on and off. Over here is our wing mirror controls, so you can have them heated and they do fold in as well. We also have our heated seat controls down here. As I say, these range from 0 to 6 and they are sublime. One feature that was unbeknownst to me before actually owning this Phaeton, and again, the absolute beauty of buying cars that you're going to sell and kind of indulging yourself in trying some different cars, being in the car trade. Certain things I probably wouldn't have learnt from videos, etc. But when you own one, you find out. So, cool little feature that I really like in here is the torch, which goes in the cigarette lighter, very nicely emblazoned with the Volkswagen thing on the bottom there. So it does have a battery in it and it should be rechargeable, yet I think my battery is probably gone. I have got it to light up in the process of fiddling with it in its place, but it will only work. Oh, did we have some light then? Yeah, so there we go. You can just about see that LED is lit up. So what should be happening is you can put it in there, twist it down, and that should charge up the battery. And then you can take this out and carry around what looks like a cigarette lighter, an old school one. And it's this cool little lockable, it should power up your LED in there then. But clearly, my battery is knackered. I think you can get them, but they're quite expensive and it's quite a random sort of, it's a button cell battery, but it is a rechargeable one and you'd have to disassemble it. If I can find one, I will try. But I did do some research on the forums and it seems like it's a watch type of battery and it's quite a difficult one to find. It's quite expensive. So we will see. You can buy an aftermarket one, but it would be nice to get this little Volkswagen one working if we are going to go to the effort of trying to sort all this stuff out. Also down here are our 2 cup holders in an excellent location right by the armrest. These have got a nice rubberized grip on the bottom for putting your can or your Starbucks or whatever in. And, as you've probably seen in other videos, you can pop the button and they come back up. Now this should come back up flush. I don't know whether it's some of the old tobacco in there that's keeping it off. This one's even worse, I think. Oh, previously it had got stuck on this button there, but it's only coming up that far. So they are going to need a good clean out, because if they're meant to operate like that, I want them to operate smoothly and come all the way up and not get snagged. So that's going to need a little bit of attention. We've got the armrest here with quite a decent size storage compartment, again just full of loads of tobacco, but thank God, I have to say, it doesn't smell of smoke in here. So obviously this has been a smoker's car recently, but it doesn't smell of smoke, so that is an absolute godsend, because as we all know, it is a nightmare to get that smell out of cars. Sunglasses holder up here, sadly no Ray-Bans or anything like that in there, but you have got somewhere to store them. You have these 2 little ashtrays down here, which are very neat. The finish and quality on these just seems really nice. I know that sounds strange, but these are metal. This isn't just plastic. It's got a nice chrome closer plate on there. It just feels nice quality, you know, this wouldn't feel out of place in the Bentley. Then we have this huge infotainment and navigation system, which is now 13 years old, this being a 2010 car, but it still seems quite decent. I can't see whether you can see that on the camera or not, or if it's playing up, but nice quality resolution. We've got radio in here, of course. This comes with pre-programmed media, or it's got a 30 gigabyte hard drive. So right now we're on Mark Knopfler, whoever he is, but the last time I was in here, it was a Metallica album, so fair play, I'm a fan of Metallica. As I say, you also have Bluetooth, as you'd want to have in this car for connectivity, and we also, via this, have down in the center console again is our controls for our ride height. We can put this car up and down, so you press this button and then you can choose either high or normal. We're currently in normal and we're keeping it that way for now. And you also have your suspension, so you can go from comfortable and literally slide this across on a sliding scale all the way over to sportive, is what they call it. I really hope that's showing up. I know this camera's probably playing up with the frequency of that screen. Just about see it there, maybe. So you can stiffen up the suspension, and it is considerably noticeable, actually, and it makes a big difference. And when you go from somewhere in the middle, whereas I think this car was, when I picked it up, all the way across to comfortable, it then feels more like it's wallowing. And if you put it across to sportive, it's quite actually rigid and handles incredibly well. Again, as you'd expect from a Bentley chassis. It's got an incredible sound system, nice tweeters here, subwoofer in the boot, everything sounds great. We've got these demisters for the windows. One of the original design briefs, I think, was that it can't ever mist up in here or whatever, so they are there to help clear your side windows. Normally you would have just the vent on the front. This vent here, if I open it, would be what you would rely on to shoot at your window and keep that demisted. But on this, you have a specific button you can press and it will blow air onto the window to keep it demisted, which is nice. This is one of those cars where normally when I sort of review or check over a car, there's a couple of little things. I like that, I like that. This car, it just doesn't ever really stop. And another one of my favorite things I've noticed since driving this is up the front, just by the dash here, we have this strip of walnut goes all the way around. I don't know how well you'll see that up against the light of the sky there. But in the corners, just built into that, it's the sort of thing you'd expect to see on, you know, like a boat builders or something, is the visual parking aids. So when the parking sensors are going off for this corner, or I'm getting close in this corner, it lights up in there. But I just like the way it's been nicely sort of Frenched in. It's not, if you get them in a Mercedes, you have a separate box that sits on top and it's kind of just, it's there, you know, there's no avoiding it. Whereas here, it's just smoothed in. You know, you're the master of your craft. You have some kind of warnings and helpful, you know, systems on this vehicle, but they're not shouting about it. They're trying to make it as, you know, classy and quiet as possible, and I really like that. In the back, through these absolutely huge doors, look at the size of those things. Again, very nice in here. Have these ashtrays on the side there. Huge seats, nice big centre armrest, plenty of storage. Your cup holders here, which I have to say, these cup holders feel much more like they're out of an Audi A4 or something. The headrest neatly stows away in the centre like that, so you almost wouldn't know it's there, and then you can just pop it up should you need it. Again, just a nice, neat little feature that makes it feel that extra bit special in here. It would be ridiculously comfortable sat in the back of here, I think. But sadly, at least as far as I'm aware, while you do have your own controls for the vents in the back and a storage box, it's not heated seats in the back, which is a shame on a vehicle like this, I think. Now, the Phaeton has an electric power opening and closing boot with some incredible hinges, as you've probably seen in other videos, but they are prone to not work. This one has been a bit temperamental for me, so I'm going to press the button on the key and see if it will open today or not. Get a flash of the lights, and nothing is happening. Some of them, if they're fitted with the system, you can press on the badge and it will unlock, but I don't think that's ours. So in here is a little panel you can slide and get to a keyhole. So it will unlock that way, and then I've got to manually lift it against the motors, which doesn't feel like the nicest thing to do. Right, here we are, opened. And check out the hinges. Apparently straight out of the Bentley as well, the same, but they almost look medical grade, don't they? They look like something you'd expect to see on the Terminator or something like that, you know, part of an exoskeleton. They just look so nice. I could do with a clean now. Obviously, it'd be very satisfying to clean some of this grease off. But here we are, an absolutely huge boot. We've still got our warning triangle, that's nice to see. We've got some wipers, some mats. I like the little hinges on here for opening these side panels. Normally you just rip them off, but to get into your battery and whatever. Got a nice little twist latch. Again, just little added feelings of quality. That not so much. That's obviously broken off and being glued back plenty of times. We'll probably do the same. And then under here, lots of rubbish, an old glove. That would be the subwoofer under there, I guess. And that is where our spare wheel was before we took it out and put it on the car. So yeah, let's see if it will close by power. Well, the latch came out. It's quite cool that the latch does stow away for some reason, just to... Okay, will it... So it's not latched. I think I might need to put the key in. Right, is that... No, so I think it has to like power latch itself once it's down. So we are going to have to plug this car in and figure out. Luckily, the boot lid is so heavy that it's definitely not going anywhere, and it seems quite safe to drive. And there it is, very typically VW looking, big plastic cover on here. As with these big engines, it's just taking up every square inch of engine bay. But having a look around, it looks pretty tidy. It hasn't been run today, so let's check the coolant out. Looks fairly clean to me. I'll check the oil. Just make sure I do this one up properly. Okay, that actually looks quite clean. Not only is it not gunky, but I can see a bit of colour and a bit of light going through that oil there, so that's good news. It's probably been serviced fairly recently, which is good to know because I don't think we've got any service history with this car. I am going to have to, as part of my renovations of this car, put the feelers out to some of my dealer friends and see if anyone can find me any service history. One other thing I would quite like to try with this car, but I'll probably have to enlist the help of someone from in the garage before I head out on the test drive, is I saw in another video, I think by Clarkson himself, that the headlight washer jets, rather than both spraying at the same time and kind of blocking out, if you've got a car that has headlight washers and you're driving along and you spray to do your windscreen, it also jets your headlights, and quite often it kind of sprays directly at the center of where the LED or whatever it is shining from, and gives you like a bit of a light blackout. Everything goes a bit dark and then it comes back on again. Well, this is meant to do one side, then the other, so that you never really lose out on all that light. So quite interested to test that out and see if it actually does it on this car. Windscreen washer jets are going. Our headlight jets aren't even coming out. I wonder if they've been disconnected. Oh, it is there. Yeah. So why is it not working then? Turn the lights on as well. Yeah, okay, so this side's coming out. And now is it going to do the other side? Yes, it is. There you go, point proven. So yeah, it does work. And then it just does a wee on the floor.
The speed of how much the air comes out the back. Even the rear air vents are digital. With like a touch button so that you can actually increase the power.
It's still not really coming out warm at the front here.
Yeah, these are great, but you should have sat at the back.
It's not cold, but it's not. Just feel yours. Giggity.
I don't think you're gonna be able to feel it today. It's more here.
Can you scoop me some air and
yeah.
Give me a handful of it so you want the air? Jesus, I thought this thing had like half a tank of fuel. Or maybe I was dreaming.
No, that's a 640D.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it says please refuel, autonomy 0 miles.
An autonomy?
Yeah.
The car needs some nom-noms. You need some nom-noms.
Yeah, this thing is actually
empty.
Precariously low on fuel.
To the petrol station, to Morrison's.
Okay, well, chauffeur duties over now. I had to drop a couple of the guys off to 2 different MOT stations to pick up 2 sales cars that we're sorting out. So they've managed to experience the back seats of the car. They say they're incredibly comfortable. We have been through sport mode and everything else, and this car is actually really impressive, and it is incredibly smooth and comfortable to drive. What I did think was going to be one of the issues with this car was when I had driven it before, I couldn't seem to get any heat from the front-facing vents. It was blowing air, but it just wasn't coming through warm, so I thought there was going to be an issue there. But I noticed there's a button in the middle which has got a blue side and a red side, and I assume it must have been turned over to the blue side for cold air. So I've turned it back to red, and now it's been pumping out lovely warm air. So that is a massive bonus. It saved me having to fix anything, but it kind of does say, you know, sometimes you can have too many controls for something, make it a bit too complicated. I honestly thought it was broken and I was going to have to get a heater matrix cleaned out or something, but luckily not. So just on the off chance I don't use any footage when the guys are in the car talking about some of the features in here, we have got, as I said before, a quite nice navigation system. You probably want an updated disc in here to make sure that you've got all the roads that have been added to our network of roads in the last 13 years. This particular model with the disc also comes with a 30GB hard drive putting all your music on, so we have sampled some Metallica, some Boney M, and the God Delusion audiobook, which was interesting.
Chapter 1, A Deeply Religious Non-Believer.
It's got an incredible sound system, as you'd expect really, and everything in here just feels incredibly good quality, and it's just so easy to drive. It is incredibly comfortable, and it's going to make a hell of a car once we've worked our magic on it. I would actually be interested to do some kind of side-by-side comparisons with this and our E65 730D when both cars are ready, because although this is incredibly comfortable to drive, I wonder if the BMW might pip it in some areas, including that kind of comfort and ease of driving. I think the steering's a bit lighter in the BMW, and if you're wanting a relaxing drive, then that does make things a bit easier, so that will be interesting to see. Downsides to this car, of course, are the running costs. I think you still pay a bit of a premium when it comes to servicing and parts, etc. Tax is £615 for the year because of the size of the engine and the age of the car. And the best you are ever going to get out of this in a fuel economy sense is a little bit under 40 miles per gallon. That's if you're driving really conservatively. So it's not awful by any means, but it's certainly not a highly economic engine. And in fact, the 640D BMW that I intend to do a video on perhaps tomorrow is a 3-litre diesel, and that will do 60 plus mpg and is under, I think, £200 to tax for the year. So all while being quicker and more impressive from a performance standpoint. So now we're back at the garage. Let's pull up and have a quick chat and figure out exactly what it is we're going to have to do to this car to get it back to its best. So things we have to fix are going to be the boot, which could be a real can of worms. We need to get the wheels refurbished, probably a full set of tyres. I've ordered some centre caps, which are not just the centre bit, but it actually goes part of this alloy wheel as well. They cost me 45 quid plus postage, let's say 50 quid. They might need a bit of refurbishing as well. They're going to need to go on. It needs a seriously good valet. It's going to need a service. And hopefully there's nothing involved with why the tyre keeps going. It's just a case of that. But there could be that to look into as well. And possibly other things, but I can't remember at this moment. If I look at Auto Trader, there's only 2 2010 Phaetons for sale. Neither of them look as nice as this car will be in the end, although they are both on better mileage. We are looking at 5,500 and just under 5,000. So this car, let's say realistically, what we're actually going to sell it for, about 4.5 maybe. This car being on 154,000 miles. But I think it's going to be really nice condition, and it really is a nice condition car. So I think 4.5 is a sensible price, and we should be able to sell it relatively quickly. So that leaves us 2,750. The alloy wheels are going to probably, let's say the 750, refurbish the wheels and to put a full set of 4 new tyres on there. That's 750 quid. We've got 2,000 left to sort the boot, and a service, and paintwork, of course, was the other thing along the doors. So it's certainly not going to be a huge profit, because we're probably going to spend a few £100 on paint to sort those doors out, because they're not big problems, but they're in a couple of different locations. So I expect it's probably going to be about 300 quid. Then we're going to need to spend some money on the boot, and that could be a new motor, it could be whatever. Let's say another couple £100. So that's £500. That leaves us with potentially a £1,500 profit, which is not a lot of money on this. So I do want to do a car vertical check, just to double check the history of this car, make sure that everything is kosher with it before we go ahead, spend a load of money on this, and, you know, worst case scenario, it turns out it's had damage in the past, or it's had a mileage rollback, and I would be throwing good money after bad. So I'm going to run a history check with Car Vertical. I have teamed up. A lot of you told me to get on board with Car Vertical, so I have listened and I have done that. If you do want to use a Car Vertical check the history of any car that you're going to be buying, I always recommend you do a history check. Go to carvertical.com, use the code SHIFTING, you will get 10% off, and it will help the channel. So ours is currently generating the report. It's checking databases in absolutely tens and tens of countries. It's going to tell us whether it was a taxi, whether it's been used by the police or the MOD, anything like that. Whether it's been a taxi before, it's going to check absolutely loads of databases. So it's come up with our car, the VIN number, and it has got 4 green ticks, most importantly. Mileage, theft, accidents, and finance, all clear. It's got a load of old MOT history. It's showing us that it's been checked in United Kingdom, Romania, Czech Republic, Canada, Slovakia, Sweden. So if this car had been imported from another country and it was on a database somewhere else, it's not just a check that checks in our country, it's going to check other countries as well. It gives me a graph to show me the mileage, so I can see that that's been going steadily upwards and it's never had a dip down, which would indicate that the mileage had a rollback. So that's good to see. It's got lots of tips as well for things you should look out for. Well, my camera actually kept overheating, so I'm going to have to resort to using the phone just to get this video finished. But the good news is Car Vertical Check came back. Green ticks all across the board. No issues to worry about with this car whatsoever. It's checked every single database that Car Vertical checks, and we have no issues. So I am definitely feeling a lot more confident now to go ahead, spend the money, get this car restored back to its former glory. It still might not be a huge earner for us, but I think we owe it to the car. It's a pretty rare car. It's a special car, and I'd like to see it back to its best, really. So we'll go ahead and do that. If you've made it this far and enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you are here and you haven't already subscribed, please do subscribe, hit the bell notification button. You will get an update when this video comes out, when we do the work, repair it, and we finally show you what the car ends up looking like. Plus, there's loads of other content to come. So if you've done all that, I will see you in the next video.